Welcome to the BFCT Leadership Guide. So first things first, how do you make a squad? You want to either go to the respawn screen or press escape, go to social. In the top left, there's squad. You create a squad, okay? By default, it is set to private, okay? If you want to make it public, first things first is you have to invite a second person to your squad. You need at least 2 people in the squad to make it public. But also you're going to have to untick private squad, give it a name, and then enable recruitment. And I'm not able to enable recruitment because I don't have a second person in my squad right now. You need 2. What auto recruit does is whenever someone joins the game, they'll automatically be placed in your squad. Mentor squad basically invites all of the lower level players to your squad, so you get a lot of newer players. Private squad makes it so only you can invite people to your squad and no one can join, except for those that you invite. Friends, if you click this, only people on your friends list can join the squad. So they can find it and they can join it, but only on your friends list. Outfit, same thing as friends, only people in your outfit can join. You can hit both, so only your outfit mates and the people on your friends list can join your squads. But yeah, the main thing is you have to give a description and then enable recruitment. And make sure the private squad's off if you want to get seen. So now that you understand how to make a squad, I'm going to teach you guys how to lead a squad. Okay, I'm not going to tell you, you have to have all this charisma and stuff. You really don't. If you know what you're doing in terms of how to lead in a certain base, in terms of positioning on lanes and understanding the battle flow, everyone will just listen to your orders because you just make a ton of sense. Okay, so you don't have to be the super charismatic guy, but it definitely does help. So, really quick, lanes. I kind of alluded to it a second ago. What are those? Okay, they are the routes between you and the enemy. So, let's say the spawn is the yellow dot, the enemy spawn, which it is. And the usual center spot is this red dot, which it is. Okay? The lanes, or the routes between these 2 spawns, the routes that you will take, look as followed. There is the top lane, bottom lane, and then mid lane. Now, what you have to understand is you always want to be on position in this game. You don't want to get caught off position. You're not pushing. You're being stupid. And you're overextending. Okay? So, what do I mean by position? A position is any piece of cover that you can play off of. It could be a top of a stairs where you headshot glitch. It could be a doorway of a building, okay, where you just peek out of. It could be a box. It could be a rock. It could be anything. Any piece of cover that you can peek off of is a position. Always be on position. Now, the developers made most bases with lanes and positions in mind, okay? So they understand that there's a certain flow to the battle. That is the lanes, okay? So they made positions to balance the lanes. So the first position on this lane up here is, you can't really see it, but there's a box. Same with over here. There's a box over here. So these positions are the frontmost positions to the enemy spawn. So if I were to say to my platoon, hey, I want you guys to spawn camp, they should be holding these frontmost positions on the lanes, okay, to create a front line as close to the enemy spawn. Now, the only thing is, these 2 positions, how many corners do you have to play off of? Well, each box has a left side of the box and a right side of the box, okay? So there's 2 boxes. Each box has 2 pieces of cover. So that means that you 2 corners, I mean. So that means you basically have an effective firing line of 4 people. So if you have anything more than 4 people, they're going to be less efficient if they're playing this area. So if we go over here, you can see there's a box over here, box over here, box over here, box over here, box over there. I don't know if you see, but that makes a front line. So how many pieces or how many corners can you play off of in this middle area? I would probably say it'd be somewhere between 18 to 24. So you go from an effective front line of 4 people to effective front line of like 18 to 24, somewhere around there. So it's way more effective to be holding this outside area just right behind where you're making a front line off all these boxes. You just want to see, how can I make a front line by holding, the right lanes, and how effective is my front line, okay? And the effectiveness of your front line, remember guys, is how many corners do you have? Because each person should have their own corner to play off of. Let's get into another front line. So each building, I'll go over in a second, but it's actually a front line. Looks like I'm running out of juice. Give me a sec. I'm going to delete all the lanes. You guys understand how this base plays out. I'm going to go back and draw the front line. So this is the first front line. This is the second front line. This is the third front line. Or the fourth front line. First, second, third, fourth. Yep. This stops the enemy advance. 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 Okay? So why are buildings considered a front line? So you guys, if you're in BFCT, have definitely heard the word building hold thrown out all day, every day. What is a building hold? A building hold is where you hold the outside doorways of the building. So there's, this door over here, this door over here, this door over here, a couple over here. I think it looks kind of like that. So what you're doing is you're holding the outside doorways of the building. You are locking them out of the building. As your lane gets pushed, you pull back. So why is this a front line? Why is doing a building hold a front line? It's because we're holding all the outer doorways. We're holding a position on each lane. That's what's needed to make a front line. Hold a position on each lane. So remember, guys, up here, there's this lane over here, right? And then this lane over here. We're holding a position on each of these lanes. Like right over here, I'm holding a position on that lane, holding a position on this lane. Okay, I'm holding a position on each lane. Over here, I'm holding over here, and I'm holding over here. I'm stopping the enemy advance because I'm holding a position on each lane. Let's say the enemies just start stacking up around this building. I'm holding a position on each lane. I'm holding all those outer doorways. I'm locking them out. I'm creating a front line around the building. As my lane gets pushed, I pull back inward. You're playing dynamically, and that's how you should be individually. But this is kind of how it works. You have lanes, that's the routes. You play positions on the lanes to create a front line. Now, you have to understand natural battle flow. The enemies aren't going to be pushing each lane equally. It's not laid out like that, okay? So let's mainly talk about the spawn camp. So these two lanes are the ones I really want to talk about, like the top and bottom lane. So let's say we're holding a position over here and a position over here. Those two boxes. We're holding a position on each lane. That creates the front line. But it's not that efficient of a front line because we only have 4 corners to work off of. Each person should have their own corner. If they don't have their own corner, they're less efficient, okay? So we have 4 people up top. Then we have probably about 18 on this front line. And there's, I think, 5 or 6 doorways. So each doorway has a left and right side that you can peek off of. So that's 2 corners each doorway, okay? So if there's 5 doorways times 2, 10 to 12 corners for you to play off of. So if this has 4, this frontmost front line, the spawn camp one only has 4. This one over here is 18 to 24, and this one has 12. You definitely want to be holding this middle front line as long as possible and pull back to the building hold when needed. The reason why building holds are very efficient is because they are very defensive. A lot of the times you can crutch on building holds. So what do I mean by crutching on building holds? So remember how I said building holds are creating a front line around the building. That in turn holds every single lane. So let's say new spawns are introduced, okay? So you guys understand how these lanes work, okay? At this point. Top lane, I'm only going to go really over top lane, bottom lane. Top lane, bottom lane, right? The point building is right over here, so the point's on this building, right? Now, let's say we're holding the spawn camp. We're holding a spawn camp over there, but the Vanu come in and they put up a beacon behind, right? So they have this beacon building behind. So all the fucking Vanu guys are pushing from behind now. So the Vanu, if you leave the Vanu unchecked, they're going to take control of the building and then they're going to push you out from behind, right? You don't want to let that happen. So how do you hold both of these lanes? Because there's new lanes introduced with new enemy logistics because they're coming from new areas, so new lanes are introduced, okay? Those lanes from behind. So how do I deal with this? Very easy. You crutch on your building hold. You basically hold all the outer doorways, and that holds a position on each lane. They can completely surround your building, and you'll be completely fine. You do not have to worry about the lanes outside if you have a building hold. The reason why a lot of the newer infantry leaders like to just do building holds all day, it's because they don't have to know how the bases flow. They can just crutch on them. It's really easy to do that. So if you guys ever see like any outfits that just do building holds all day, they're pretty dog shit. They don't know how the bases flow. They're not playing as efficiently as they can. Some bases, you just have to do building holds, okay? Other bases, most bases, you should be holding outside. It's more efficient. You have more front line potential, okay? Your front line is more efficient. If you have smaller numbers, though, of course, like less than 12 people, building holds are actually pretty good. Because like I said, there's probably 10 to 12 pieces of cover. So if you have 12 people, it's completely efficient, right? So it's all about size, but if you have more than 12 people and you're not outside, you're a shitter, at least on most bases. So I'm going to go over a few more examples so this really gets ingrained into you. So on this space, a con data hub on Austin, enemy spawn here, their teleporter over here. This is A point, and our spawns are usually somewhere right around here. How do the lanes flow? You got the top lane. You got like the 2 major lanes that are just pushing around here. And then if you get pushed out of point and the enemies are starting to push your spawns, then they'll use like this lane, right? These are the most contested lanes. Now, there's all these side lanes, okay? And you have to understand, what are the most contested lanes? The contested lanes are the ones with the shortest route between you and the enemy, okay? These are the contested lanes. So now, like, let's say a side lane would be if the enemy wanted to do like something like this, right? That's like a side lane. The reason why it's a side lane is because it takes way too long. The enemies will take the shortest route most of the time because it gives them the most amount of frontline potential. I'm not going to go into that. Just understand rotation times are massive. You need to get good logistics. But, yeah, so there's main lanes and there's side lanes, basically. The flank lanes, and then there's the main lanes. You need to hold all the lanes, but find a position to do it, okay? So remember, let's say there's this back lane, right? If you hold a front line over here, you're holding it so they can't even get to that side lane, right? And, like, there's another side lane, you know, over here, but they can't even get to that either because you're holding the front line. You're not letting them push out. You're understanding, hey, if I let the enemies, like, if I, instead of holding this, you know, front line, if I were holding, let's say, like, over here, I would have to cover way more area because they would be flanking me. So instead of just holding that same size firing line, I'm going to have to spread out even more and hold, like, I don't have enough ink, but you're going to have to hold, like, this bottom area next to the bottom lane, that green lane. So, like, this is kind of how battle flow kind of works, okay? So you want to be thinking, like, where's the best place I can hold the front line? Where can it hold a position on each lane? Like, where can I play efficiently, you know? And if I have to, do I have to build and hold? Because usually, most of the time, you want to be holding outside for as long as possible and then building hold when you have to. If you're a new leader and you just want to win, yeah, you can just cheese building holds all day, and you're going to do okay, though. Okay, and now we'll go over one more thing. Combined arms, a Raxcom network. So enemy spawns over here. They have a teleporter. No one uses the teleporter on this base. Our usual spawn is over here. Let's pretend like there's no teleporter. I want to make it easy so people can kind of see what I'm talking about. So the route, or the lane, kind of looks like this, right? And the point building's right here. So how do we hold this, okay? What I like to do on this base, if I want to do combined arms, is I hold a front line with infantry, and you guys see how this is right here is a bridge, okay? So the enemies all have to get really tight and, like, go through a bridge. What you want to do is hold a front line, bomb in front of the front line with air to ground. That's simply how you do it. You create a front line with infantry, bomb in front of the infantry with the air to ground. How do vehicles play in? Vehicles take out enemy spawns, like Sunderers and such, enemy vehicles, but also you can integrate them with anti-infantry on the front line. Usually armor integrates with the infantry on the front line and just kind of adds a little bit of support. So if you get like a Cobalt bus or Cobalt like Harasser or Ant or whatever, usually you want that with the infantry on the front line. The air to ground bombs in front of the front line. Another like little bit higher tier air to ground tactic is a lot of times, you know, especially as Blackfoot, we hold the outer doorways a lot. You know, we lock them out of the building. What this allows us to do is both crossfire between buildings, but also we have a negative of the enemies will start to stack up on the outside doorways. They will get critical mass. The enemies will get critical mass on the outside of the doorways, which means they'll get enough people where they'll be able to push in and actually win. To prevent them from getting critical mass, if you hold outer doorways, you air to ground the outside doorways. So the outside doorways on this base, kind of like this. So if you air to ground the outside doorways, they won't be able to stack up. They won't be able to get enough people to push in and get critical mass. Critical mass being you stack up enough people to be able to push in and be able to take it. So that's just kind of the basics of leadership and how you should be looking at bases. Remember, guys, there's lanes. That's the route between you and the enemy. There's positions on lanes. Everyone in your squad should be, or platoon should be holding a position. Then there is front lines. You want to be making a front line with the positions on your lane. Okay, 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 okay. Okay, okay, okay,